Yeah, of course you're
King, I
plat
find a
too.
lot of skill
You're
issue
a
alerts.
bum.
Players
No one has ever done this in high-rank card play. Get a job. This video was not needed. It looks like we're going back to my favorite hobby, proving mean idiots wrong. You guys know you can, look at my profile. It's not private, it never has been, and you can see my in-game name right there in the video. But just because you were so annoying about it, I hit Celestial to spite you. Is my opinion valid now? Is that good enough? Are you in this 0.17% above me? Who's allowed to make logical arguments about the game? Is it only one above all players? I'm fairly certain the people who type this aren't even aware what order the ranks are in above Diamond. I'm gonna tell you a secret. Anyone can give you a good argument. If you ask their rank instead of engaging with their ideas, you aren't intelligent. But if it matters to anyone, I'm Celestial. That's the one above Grandmaster. That means you only have two options then. Admit I'm right because you have no rebuttal other than rank shaming, or admit I'm right because I'm better than you. You can pick whichever, I don't care. Jarvis, pull up round 2 of the scoreboard debate.
As you wish, sir.
I never know which video of mine is going to blow up, and I wasn't at all prepared for the amount of attention the scoreboard video was going to get. But I'm super happy about it, not just because it helps the channel a lot, but because this is a topic I want the Marvel Rivals community, and even the Overwatch community, to actually understand better. I've already had this conversation in depth a long time ago with the fire meter video, and I felt rehashing things in such detail might be overkill, but given a lot of the confusion and fighting in the comments, I think it's time to dive a bit deeper. Before we even start, here, look, it's my account. Are you happy? It's not a plat player talking, and honestly, I don't have tons of time to commit to playing this game's competitive right now, but I've been top 500 in Overwatch since the beginning, and this game is genuinely just Overwatch 3, or 2 if you want to point out how Overwatch 2 is just Overwatch. Regardless, I already made a video about how it doesn't matter what your rank is, your ideas and logic should hold up on their own. So angry comments about my rank being low weren't just wrong, they show you aren't intelligent. Also, being mean doesn't make you cool. I want this to be a place where we can talk about important things and even make friends. If I can make your day a bit brighter with my videos, I think I did a good job. Hey! I just wanted to ask you really quickly to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Any help you can give the channel means that I get to see my precious little Oink again sooner, and that means the world to me, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's actually dive into the meat of things. Last time, I provided some reasoning on why each individual stat tracked by the scoreboard is bad on its own, and I even delved a bit into why the way people interpret said stats is even worse. But there are several things I left out that are really important. I want to start with this. The primary reason this scoreboard is flawed is because of the numerous things it leaves out. Really quickly, I need to point out again that the goal of the scoreboard is to provide a means through which players can understand the contribution of each of their teammates. You could argue this isn't the purpose, but given that this is both the primary thing people use it for, by far, as well as the fact that it's pretty evidently designed with this goal in mind, even using the words MVP and ace next to players using a formula based on these metrics, I think it's safe to say you have to admit that's the goal, even if it has other uses. With this goal in mind, I'll bring us back to the main flaw with the scoreboard in this context. It leaves out an absurd number of important things. Time capping pointer pushing a payload, time contesting a pointer payload, player deployables broken and how much damage you did to said deployables, players saved or even revived, ultimates eaten, stunned or blocked, etc., etc. In actuality, this list could contain more nebulous concepts like attention drawn or space held, but I chose only to list metrics that were actually quantifiable to show that even these easy-to-track things are not on the scoreboard. Each of these things plays a massive role in whether you win or lose your match, and yet looking at just the scoreboard, you wouldn't even have an inkling of knowledge on how players performed within these metrics. So obviously the next logical step would be to try and put all these things onto the scoreboard, right? I can already hear someone typing up a message about visual clutter and how incredibly difficult it will be to paint an accurate picture of how the match went with all these new numbers. I also hear another person typing up a comment about how players will still misinterpret this new more robust scoreboard in order to flame whoever they want to. And to both of those comments, I say, precisely. Having all of these things on the scoreboard somewhere would be nice, but realistically they A, clutter up the UI significantly, B, still don't make it easy to decode player contribution, and C, are still prone to being misinterpreted however someone wants in order to blame someone else. This is where the fire meter comes in, or should I say the ace and MVP system. As I've stated in a prior video, the ace and MVP system is Overwatch's fire system, but just dumbed down a bit. This system needs two glow-ups. First, it needs to be more accurate, and second, it needs to be more openly accessible. I'll explain what I mean by both of these in a minute here. The ace/MVP system is precisely what we need in order to make sense of all those numbers we mentioned earlier. All of these numbers, currently, are just sitting there so that your brain-dead teammates can stare at them bug-eyed before telling you to jump off a bridge because they can't come to terms with the fact that they played poorly. There isn't an easy way to slam them all together in some formula on the fly in order to make any sense of them. Like, even if your goal is pure and all you and your team want to do is understand which pick on the team isn't working out correctly, and you can't figure it out yourselves, so you turn to the only objective source, the scoreboard, you still can't glean any truly accurate or meaningful understanding. Now, let's say instead, the scoreboard's MVP system either showed you not just the ace, but first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth on your team, or better yet, it even showed each player's internal score it uses for this system. Wouldn't that be immensely better? You do have a score. That's how the game tracks who is the MVP/ace. If the scoreboard just made these numbers public during the match, things would be in a much, much healthier place for the game. There is a rebuttal to this, but I've already addressed it in the past, so this'll be easy. Some say this will either not solve toxicity or even make it worse. To the idea it will make toxicity worse? No, the game is always going to be toxic no matter what. Yeah, the goal of this was never to make the game less toxic, but more accurate. But I do think in some way it could make the game a bit less toxic, actually, now that I think about it. I want to put it to you like this. Do you genuinely think the number of players currently talking trash and telling each other how bad they are can even go up? It's absurdly common, and more importantly than that, I think the people who are toxic are a specific set of people. Whether it's 50% or 90%, the number is not the point, and honestly, it may be more accurate to put it like this. I think everyone already has a set of conditions special to them that determines if they will be toxic. Maybe you're only toxic to people who are already harassing someone else. Maybe only lag gets you mad or one-tricks. My point is that people are all different, but I think that how you treat your interaction with your teammates is probably more dependent on your own personality than anything else. So let's say a hypothetical team loads into a game. 3 of the players are not in chat, 3 are, and one of them is a damage one-trick Spider-Man that is prone to flaming supports, especially Rocket Raccoon players, as he thinks Rocket is a throw pick. Sorry Spidey mains, nothing against you, it's just for the example. Let's say another is a Rocket Raccoon main who's only ever toxic to someone who is already harassing someone else, and the third player just wants to relax, but listens to comms in order to hear important callouts. Let's say this game takes place in 2 different universes. One where we have our current scoreboard, and one where we have a more open and accurate MVP system. Finally, let's say that the team we described is losing, and that Rocket is doing really well. He's even the second best player on his team. But Spider-Man is having a rough game. Not quite the worst player, but the 5th on his team. With our current scoreboard, I believe it's almost obvious what happens here. Spider-Man lets Rocket know that he's unloved and should free up some air for other people to breathe. But if we had a system where Spider-Man can see both how well Rocket is doing, as well as how horribly he is doing, he may not say anything, and thus no argument ever ensues. If the roles were reversed, and Spider-Man was doing well, but Rocket wasn't, with either scoreboard he's getting told to go die. If we look at it like that, I think that a more open and accurate scoreboard actually may decrease toxicity by about 50%. Who knows, that's just a guess using some logic and hypotheticals. My primary point, however, is that saying it will increase toxicity is absurd. What it will do is give you a more accurate look at the game, which would be nice given the scoreboard proper is just used to gaslight however someone feels like, and gives many players the impression their teammates are always the problem. Gosh, I'm just now realizing what a hilarious reality check this would be for some players. But then we need to address not just the open half of my idea, but the accurate half. If the scoreboard is going to display MVP points during the match, it really needs a revamp, because the current system is so flawed. Feel free to test these things yourself, but if you'll remember all the things I mentioned earlier, from breaking Penny Nest to reviving teammates to contesting point, as far as I can tell, not a single one of these incredibly important things is tracked by the MVP system, which I honestly think is a bit of a nightmare. I hate to pick on someone specific, but I do recall someone commenting that fire was inaccurate because they could get on fire just for standing on the payload. I need to debunk this flawed logic really quickly so that it doesn't spread, and I've already done so before. Pushing payload and capping points are necessary to winning. Okay, well actually this game pushes it for you, but what I mean is that doing the objective is necessary in order to win. Which means that if a scoring system ignores this facet of the game, it is instantly fundamentally broken as a way of tracking player contribution. It has to reward this to some degree, and while I understand that just standing on payload probably shouldn't get you all the way on fire by itself, it doesn't. Overwatch's fire system, at least old Overwatch 1's fire system, rewarded you fire points for pushing payload. And the act of doing so could even be what gets you on fire, but it was only after doing a myriad of other things as well. If you got some elims and healed someone up, but just barely weren't on fire, pushing the payload could be that final thing that got you on fire. So either this comment is saying you shouldn't get on fire for only pushing payload, which you don't, or it's saying that pushing the payload shouldn't be rewarded, which makes no sense. I can understand if you don't want to reward players for standing on the payload beyond the 3 it takes to reach the max speed, but saying 3 and below shouldn't get rewarded is genuinely mental. This draws up a point I want to talk about really quickly too. People were trying to say that just because the scoreboard was flawed didn't mean it should be thrown out as meaningless entirely. First of all, saying I was exaggerating is just silly. Pointing out my exaggerations is like pointing at a mime and saying, "He can talk, he just chooses not to." Yeah, obviously, but you're just ruining the fun. If I just give you facts and don't use exaggeration, jokes, or sarcasm to show how ridiculous some ideas are, where's the fun? But about the scoreboard being useful still, I do address in the first video that the scoreboard still has its uses. I just don't think it should be trusted in general. And the primary reason is not even just because it can be misinterpreted, it's because all of those stats that are left out. If we leave out such important, fundamental, and game-changing aspects of the match in our stat tracking, the system of stat tracking should not be trusted. You can't just forget part of a math problem and hope you'll come up with a somewhat accurate answer. That's ludicrous. You know what? I'm realizing right now that this video is going to need a part 3. Here, look, it's Oink! Isn't she precious? Oink is a good girl, and she would never blame her teammates while quoting the flawed scoreboard. Actually, that's pretty funny to think about. Oink is genuinely better at understanding Marvel Rivals and Overwatch than 90% of players are, because she doesn't know what the scoreboard even is, and therefore doesn't ever use it as an excuse. I hope you enjoyed the video. You guys are really awesome. It means the world to me and my family that you watched and liked and subscribed. please do so if you haven't. I hope I can include videos of me petting Oink again one day, but until a day where our family is reunited, we hope you'll continue to support us. Have a great day, friends, and tell your teammates thank you for the heals or shields or peel. Bye!